Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me as always is...
Alice, you'll need my power! Eddie of Edward is Truth.
I was trying to guess which quote you were gonna do.
There were a lot.
There's the one that I thought was gonna be, hey, baby, or whatever he says when he comes out of the coffin.
Rick, yeah, no, that's a good one. There's a lot of good ones in this. Of course, there's right before that, how sweet, fresh meat, and you shouldn't have buried me. I'm not dead, which he doesn't say, because so much of this movie is DVR, and it's so obvious when you watch it in HD, and you can see, even though it's supposed to be in silhouette, Robert Englund's face is clearly not moving, and maybe it's supposed to be more nefarious and like he's everywhere. But it still bothers me anyway.
Yeah, well, the movie in question, if you can tell by already clicking on this podcast or video, if it's on YouTube, is A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, or A Nose 4.
The Dream Master.
When you acronymize it, like
acronymize it?
Acronymize it. A nose.
A nose.
A nose. 4.
A nose. A nose.
The Dream Masturbator, released August 19th, 1988.
Ooh, cheeky.
Well, there's a I guess an allusion to wet dreams in this or something. What does he say? Yeah. How's that for a wet dream?
Yeah. Or a wet dream.
Yeah. Although I guess wet dreams don't actually. We're going all over the place here. Wet dreams don't actually involve masturbation. It's just sort of like a natural.
That's true.
Occurrence. Yeah. At least that's from what I had learned in elementary sex ed, because that's when they started. You
usually don't know that you're having a wet dream until it's over.
Yeah, I remember they covered it on Degrassi in the 80s.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I didn't. I'm not that old. I saw the reruns of the 80s ones,
and I just didn't watch, but I knew what it was.
Well, it's Canadian.
But
it's a Canadian.
I know. I think I'm old enough that I think I just found out about them in the playground just from talking with the other kids.
Yeah.
And we did have sex ed. We did take sex ed, but I think most of what I retained and carried with me, I learned, just socializing as a kid. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, this is going to be a quick and dirty one for you today. So to start it off, because we did this last week with the Fridays, because we've been covering the Nightmare on Elm Street movies slowly but surely. But I want to know your ranking so far of what we've covered, which would be 1 to 4. Plus Freddy versus Jason. You knew this was coming, Edward. Don't.
I did. I even wrote them down. You want me to go best to worst or worst to best?
Your preference, and I'll just copy.
All right. Yeah. Let's incline the way I would if I were going to watch these. Okay. I would begin with Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Yeah. Then I would watch Freddy versus Jason, and then I would watch this movie. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dream Master, and then I would watch Nightmare on Elm Street, the original movie, and then I would watch The Dream Warrior. And what would you watch?
Oh wow!
In what order?
Okay. So if we're going from worst, Freddy versus Jason. I can't get beyond that. And keep in mind, we're just the ones that we've covered on the podcast so far. So Freddy versus Jason. Well, just for the people who are new that don't know our system yet.
I'm not criticizing you.
No, you're not criticizing, but you're like, oh yeah, I know, and I'm like, I know you know, but they don't know.
Oh my god. And we've just eaten up another 30 seconds. Go on.
I told you it was going to be a quick and dirty one. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 after that. Then this one, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, original, and then Nightmare on Elm Street 3 at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
And 1 and 3 are very, like, they could be interchangeable. They're both, like, very, you know, we talked about this last time we covered 3, that those two are pretty equal for me.
The Freddiest of the Freddy
Well,
movies thus far.
I mean, here's the thing with me. I know that this is a franchise that you swear by. Like, you love, like, you and I are, like, very different in our franchises. Like, all the ones that I love, you're just like, they're there. And then all the ones that you love, I feel that way too about those. And you know it's true.
No, I'm not like they're there.
They're just there.
I'm like, no, I like those. But do you know, if I had to choose, if I had to do like a Sophie's Choice of like, you know, one of your franchises, and some of them we have in common, like we share Child's Play, the Chucky movies and whatnot.
You know?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's the only reason we talk to each other. But
well, sometimes I wonder about your allegiance to your franchises too. Like you boast about Halloween, and then we start talking about the movies individually, and I'm just like, do you really like these? You know?
I mean, well, we've only really covered the ones that we've covered of Halloween, because we've kind of been going backwards with those. Have been the new ones, and
we haven't even done the OG.
Yeah, like in my opinion, like I'm not really much of a fan of anything after H2O. But everything, like 1 to 7 in that franchise, like I love all those movies. With A Nightmare on Elm Street, like I'm very much like my Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is the Nancy trilogy, if you will.
Okay.
Like those are all great, and then everything else, I'll give it this: like there's diversity in the stories. Like you're not getting the same thing every time, which I mean, even though like, you know, something like Friday the 13th, you know, it's a lot of the same through and through. Like there is some differentiation, but I feel like Nightmare probably does it the best in terms of giving you something different. But is that different good? That's my question, and that's what we're gonna find out with this chapter. So before we get to a premise, do you know where the fine people who are watching, listening can view Freddy 4, the Dream Master.
Yeah, it can. Freddy 4.
Freddy 4.
I'm typing in Freddy 4. I can't find nothing. But it's a Nightmare on Elm Street 4. What are you doing? Okay, so anyway, I'm in Haddonfield all of a sudden, the East Coast of Haddonfield. But okay. It was just pulled, unfortunately, off of, I think it was Netflix. They were all on there, and then they just suddenly disappeared.
Oh, that
so you
doesn't
can't
surprise
find
me
it
at all.
Yeah, at this particular moment, you can't find it streaming on any subscription-based platform. You will again. Sometimes it's on Mac, sometimes it's on whatever. But it is available on the usual suspects like Apple TV Plus and YouTube and Prime for the individual subscriptions. And then, of course, do you know that it's not on Blu-ray in its own release? I did the research and I couldn't find it.
Just in the box
set? Yeah, no, just in the box set that I'm holding up like right here. But where you get the collection. The collection was re-released in 2019, so you can get it without all the special features. If anybody just wants bare bones, just give me the franchise kind of thing.
I think that's what I got, yeah.
Okay, and but yeah, that's what's out. I'm hoping, because the aforementioned, you know, like your Friday the 13th franchises and Halloween franchises came out with great big, you know, box set releases from Scream Factory. I'm hoping maybe that's in the cards for Freddy somewhere down the line. But as of right now, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, before the premise, I do also want to let everyone know that if you're enjoying the Cherry Picker podcast and you want to give back a little bit, you can always head over to my Patreon account, www.patreon.com/ZachCherry. That's ZACKCHERRY. And any tier you support will get you early access to all of our episodes. You'll get to see them several days before they officially release. You could also, ironically enough, support at the Freddy Krueger tier, which will get you access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is the bonus episode that we run once a month. That is for the Patreons. And last month and this month, we were stepping away from horror, and we were talking about the James Bond franchise. So if that's something that you're into, you can go over there and watch Edward and I rank and discuss all of those movies. We covered films 1 to 14 back in August. This month we're covering 15 to 25, and I was shook by the end to see what
our rankings and how they differed.
Yeah, absolutely. For someone who is like a longtime fan, and someone who's just like, a visitor.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I had my pass and everything.
Absolutely. So something to check out if you're wanting to get hours of bonus content, because there's probably almost like 30 episodes of Cherry Picker After Dark episodes, and we talk about other cult movies. There's a lot of franchise rankings, character rankings. So lots to go over if you're not sick of us by now. But I do want to shout out some of my top tier Patreon supporters. So thank you to the Michael Myers tier: Kyle Beard, Sam Levy, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horse Let95, Bruce, the Genetic Jackhammer Rando, Gary Blasick, Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, Brandy BB, and then the Ghostface tier: Eric Champney, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, and Garrison Nichols. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Jason Voorhees Galatello, our editor, who joined us last week for the Friday the 13th, the final chapter episode, so make sure you check that out as well. Edward, premise us.
All right.
Grace us with a premise.
After facing off with the Dream Warriors, the Dream Demon, Freddy Krueger, is resurrected from his apparent demise and rapidly tracks down all 3 of the surviving Elm Street kids. However, Kristen Parker soon realizes that Freddy is taking advantage of that unknown power she now wields to pull a new group of teenage children into his foul domain. Can she finally defeat Freddy, or is it already too late to escape a Nightmare on Elm Street? Or Dream Master.
I think it could have worked like a Nightmare on Elm Street for the Dream Master.
But how?
But for a night, is it possible to escape a Nightmare on Elm Street for the Dream Master?
For the Dream.
No,
Master.
it was like that. there was like a Family Guy gag where he's like in the theater, and it's that thing where every time within the movie they say the title, and they're watching Superman 4, and he's like, "I'm Superman for the quest for peace."
Oh boy. Well, now I'll know for the next one.
For the next 4 that we do.
That has 4 in the title.
Halloween.
That's rare.
Is it going to be
Halloween.
the Halloween for the return of Michael Myers?
Okay, now that I know your preference, I'll file it away, and we'll see if I remember it.
Okay. So you mentioned the ADR.
Yes.
Because that was like I actually took notes. I don't usually take notes, but like this movie to me is so basic and forgettable. Here is the deal with this. I watched this maybe like a month and a half ago, and I had to watch it again because I forgot all the reasons why or whatever. But so I did keep a little like running note thing here, and it's not like bad. But the ADR was kind of like that was at the top of the list because it's just, God, especially for Lisa Wilcox, it's like I feel like every line of hers was re-looped in or whatever, because it's like there's not one moment in the film where I feel it's connected to what her lips are doing.
Especially like the early stages,
Yeah.
Alice, when she's first class, first grade. I am so tired. I'm sorry, but just like just all the when dreaming's all you have, you kind of become an expert. Like I think it's so breathy that maybe the microphone. I mean, a lot of it's outside too, so I get the impression that like. They didn't want to pick up all that ambient noise, but I'm sure that she was just like speaking so low. It's a similar kind of thing with like Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns that I think we mentioned, that like sometimes it's so low and there's so much vocal fry that it's like there's no way a mic that's like 6 feet above your head is going to pick that up. So it all ban the bat. But anyway, so maybe Lisa Wilcox had a little of that going on. But I did notice it kind of throughout. It's weird because this movie walks a strange line with me, because I feel like I don't share your opinion, but I do feel like when it's on, my God, is it on? And when it isn't, I'm like, what? Why? A note I took about halfway through this particular screening was, what a peculiar movie. There were just so many moments that it was made during a writer's strike, so there's that.
Yeah, 88, Same with Halloween 4.
Yeah. And I feel like it might feel a little bit more apparent here, though, because there's some lines.
It's very underwritten. And that's the first thing, because it's like, in terms of the mythology, it just sort of like, it just forgets everything. Like, it's almost like the Friday the 13th Part 3, where it's just like, we're not even going to mention the fact that his name is Jason or anything. And in this one, it's sort of like, there was things that were set up in 3 that are just kind of like thrown to the wayside here. Obviously, we've got the returning characters. But I notice, and I won't go too much into 5, but they sort of like pick up a thread that was left with the third movie, and here is just like bypassed altogether. So it feels like a lot of this movie is just sort of like, it's very like plot driven. Like, it's just sort of like things just keep happening. It's almost like it just goes from set piece to set piece to set piece. I really do enjoy probably the first act, like as the things are starting. But the middle of the movie, when it's just like, okay, and now it's like someone new dies, and then it's the same thing. It's like rinse and repeat. They're like, we're dropping like flies, and then the next person dies, and everyone's like, this is getting weird. And then, like, until there's no one left except the two of them. But then I really liked when she sort of, I guess, absorbed the powers of her friends, and she kind of turned into that badass at the end. But then it was like the final fight and all that. I'm just kind of like, okay, like I started to tune out.
That's the angle of this particular sequel that I think works definitely to its benefit in terms of something existing that didn't exist before. Kristen somehow bestows her power, literally kind of tosses it to Alice as
She throws it to Freddy, and then it's like,
well, no, because her soul goes into Freddy, but the power escapes Freddy and goes through into Alice.
That's what happened. Okay.
That's what happened. Yeah, you can see it's all visual language. But the thing is, so that I remember seeing it for the first time. My sister and I, we didn't know. We were on board for the movie. We were excited about it, and we liked the way things were kind of going up until that point. But when that happened, we looked at each other like, really? And then the thing is, what saved it for us was what you mentioned, and it's the new development, which is Alice's ability to acquire the strengths of each one of these people as they pass on. And it's because there's so many moments. That's one thing that really works for me with this movie in terms of the relationships between these characters, is that there are so many little minute moments that are behavior based, or just like little exchanges that just kind of show you how much they like each other and how much they get along and what the dynamic of their friendships are, and that they're all kind of like there for each other. They have each other's backs, and it's that kind of thing that makes me want to root for them. Like everything with Sheila and Debbie, even though Debbie doesn't want to do her homework and doesn't want to study, just wants to work out and be like this kind of punky looking, metal listening chick and everything like that. Or at least that's the way her hair
Linda Hamilton
makes her look.
Circa Terminator 1, yeah.
Right. And then Sheila, who's very bookish and, very responsible, but like then we see her being like she's sucking on her puffer, and you see, and her inhaler, and this guy's just kind of like, hey, you're sucking on the wrong thing. She's like, hey, you must be the only guy in this school suffering from penis envy. And it's really lame, but I love the fact that Sheila starts laughing, because immediately you see her go from feeling like completely disarmed and uncomfortable at this propositioning from this jerk to all of a sudden feeling kind of triumphant because someone tougher than her doesn't feel intimidated by him and is defending her. And just like, ah, ha, 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 I owe you one. You know, it's so, it's really cheesy. Yeah. It's very much, again, kind of like television, teenage television of that time, like pre 90210 era, kind of like, you know, exchanges where, you know, we're holding our books and they're on our hips. We're in Saved by the Bell, I think, you know, kind of like.
Yeah, like in terms of like the cast of characters, I think that's like a boon to this movie's benefit for sure. I'll reserve who I think was my favorite until the end. Oh, but yeah, there's definitely it's a little strange because it's sort of like walks this fine line where it's this like ragtag mixture of like the like popular and unpopular kids, whereas like we've talked about this before, where like I guess the conceit of the franchise is that Freddy targets like the more like outcast kids, but that's not really how it started, because like you look at like the foursome in the original, or at least like the threesome, because I think Rod was he was the outlier with them, but like, you know, Glenn was like a quote unquote jock, and like Nancy and Tina were obviously, you know, they didn't exude the kind of energy that they were unpopular kids in school. So that didn't really start until Mark Patton in 2, and then kind of like really came to the forefront in 3, and now in 4 it's kind of like that was almost thrown to the wayside just to kind of accommodate like, yeah, we're just like, we're gonna do that thing in the 80s where there's like, we saw it last week with Friday the
Breakfast
13th
Club.
Yeah, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, where it's just like there's no way that Jimmy and Ted would be hanging out with they would not be invited. They're not friends with them. So this idea of like, oh, we're just gonna mix all of these like cliches together into this one clique that doesn't really make sense.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I agree with you and I disagree. Like, I agree with you in terms of, like, there are full-on contradictions in, if we can call it a script, but let's just say the dialogue or, you know, what we're following, the track we're following through the movie, because I noticed, I think I've always noticed, but it reminded me, seeing Rick when Dan is first introduced. And Alice is obviously going all doe-eyed, just like watching him and daydreaming about him coming over and talking to her.
She's having her Ally McBeal moments, as I like
exactly.
to call them. There's a few of them
exactly.
in the movie, yeah.
And then, even though this predates Ally McBeal, but whatever. No, but then you see she's standing right next to Rick and to Kristen, and they're kind of like, hey, are you okay? Whatever. He's like, hey, he obviously sees that his sister is into this guy Dan, who's like now, like, you know, a good 20 feet, 30 feet away. Just kind of like, hey, if you want, we're pretty tight. I can introduce you. It's just like, stop teasing her. He's like, I'm just kidding. And I'm like, oh, so you're not close, or are you kidding? Because you don't seem like you'd be close. But then Dan kind of spends like almost the whole movie looking for Rick. And you never really understand why until it and it doesn't make sense until it does. Yeah. Then when it starts to make sense that, like, I think when it crests, or when it like kind of starts to make sense, is when all of the people are starting to die. Rick tells Dan, like, look at us, we're dropping like flies, and goes to be with his sister, which was a moment I always loved. But what happens after that is they're in the locker room, and they're not even together, but Dan's with like one of his more popular friends, and the friend's just kind of like looking at Rick just walking around like a zombie because he hasn't been getting any sleep, and he's just kind of like, hey, gotta feel sorry for the poor bastard. I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, his girlfriend's dead and his sister's a nutcase, and Dan slams him against the locker and tells him, shut the fuck up, basically, and then goes over and aligns himself with Rick instead, because this is where the important shit is happening, not with this fucker who, you know, wants to dismiss these people who I'm starting to realize I care about if I'm Dan. That I like. So as far as, like I said, like as far as like giving us little morsels down the line to kind of inform what's making them care about each other and everything like that. Like even with Alice and Debbie, like they seem like a really unlikely friend group, but the fact that they both work together at Craven, like, you know, she's probably
Nice
saved
touch, yeah.
Debbie's ass. Yeah, exactly. She's probably saved Debbie's ass like more than a couple times
Yeah.
because, you know, if you're at the Craven, you want Alice waiting on you. You do not want Debbie waiting on you because she's not going to get anything right. Her head's, you know, on other things.
Yeah.
She's going to be, you know, sailing over to the boys' table. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was I couldn't put my finger on it, but then I finally like figured it out when Alice has this moment where I guess it's after Kristen dies, because Kristen is a smoker all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That Alice, these cigarettes just materialize out of nowhere, and she just starts smoking, and she's like, "What am I doing? I don't even smoke," or whatever the line is. And
I don't smoke.
and all I could think was, yeah, that's it. And it's just like, oh my God, she's Cindy Campbell from Scary Movie. Like, Alice is Anna Faris.
I could absolutely see Anna Faris just like putting a cigarette in her mouth and going, "I don't smoke." Oh my God. That's perfect. I'm never.
Yeah.
I hope I never forget that. That's hilarious.
I don't think you can now. Because I just, at that point, I'm just like, this is, I mean, Lisa Wilcox is great. And I love her.
Yeah.
But it's just like seeing it, it's just like, oh my God, this is, obviously this predates, another thing that predates Scary Movie and
Yeah.
Cindy Campbell. But it's just like, it's the same kind of like dopey, doe-eyed ingenue, like, what's going on? Like, you know, what is all this responsibility that I have? Like, I'm the final girl? I don't know what's going on here. But that is something that did help me through the movie quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Lisa Wilcox's performance in both of her movies, but particularly in this one, just because that's a difficult evolution to play without it being cheesy or even campy. We could elevate it to camp, and I feel like it's definitely got, you know, notes of camp to it, and I don't think that's because of Lisa so much as because of the movie and what it's asking her to do.
Yeah.
But
I don't think the ADR didn't help either.
Yeah, the ADR obviously like lends itself to that. But as far as what she invested and everything like that, I love that I believe her no matter what moment we're seeing her in, whether it's like her origin where she's just kind of like standing there with her greasy hair, clutching her books really, really close to her chest and wandering around like Sissy Spacek and Carrie, or if she's in her, like, it's no longer a daydream, I guess it's an evening dream now, when she's serving her dad dinner and he looks at it, this tiny bowl of what looks like to be corn and Brussels sprouts. I don't even know what it is. And just like, what the hell do I look like? A rabbit? No.
And then she has another one of her Ally McBeal moments, yeah.
She has another one of her Ally McBeal moments. She just like crashes the bowl and makes him flinch and look, you know, repentant and sad, like he needs to atone for drinking his life away in front of the eyes of his daughter, and then it all melts away. And I think there's even a chime that goes off like after to bring her back into reality. But then as she's starting to acquire, you know, like there's the mania as she's acquiring the strengths of her friends and her family as they pass away. But then there's also like the moments where she's completely self-possessed. And again, it could be cheesy, but because I care, I'm so rooting for her to succeed. I think it's the moment is it her brother's funeral? And after
Mind
it's after
over
her.
matter.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just like Anna
No.
Faris, like saying,
Yeah.
"Don't you
But she
see,
she does
Brenda?"
punch it more. But she does punch it more. So yeah, that would have been hilarious. But don't you see Brenda? It's a scary movie. That's what Sheila used to say. But or Shorty. That's what Shorty used to say. Oh my God, Scary Movie 6. We've got it. Okay, they're gonna go back to high school anyway, or we'll have a flashback where they're in high school. That would be hilarious. I want to see that now.
Please, yeah.
Okay, we're getting so derailed. Anyway, this movie. But when she's just kind of like mind over matter, and she walks away and everything, but there's this the determination in her and everything like that I don't question for a minute. I wouldn't want to stand between that Alice and like basically what she's hoping to achieve, because I know I'd be taken down. Yeah. That said, I do agree with you in terms of the climax itself. I feel like Freddy's, if we can call his defeat, I wouldn't call it destruction even, but I mean, it's pretty cool to look at. And this is very telling in terms of like how I see Rennie Harlin as a director, particularly of this feature, but kind of overall. A lot of inventiveness, a lot of it seems to work best when there isn't dialogue going on, even though there are some moments that I appreciate the dialogue, and sometimes, but mostly when he's moving the camera and guiding us through things, I feel pretty good. But the climax itself, and even Freddy's, I'm trying to create a parallel here. Freddy's entrance into the movie, I think, is just as ill-conceived as his departure. Because he comes back into the mix. This was the first time my sister and I looked at each other when we were teenagers, kind of going like, what? When the dog, Jason, Kincaid's dog, goes over and pisses on Freddy's grave, where his bones.
But did Rennie write the script too?
He wrote a lot of it. Like a lot of it was his conception, because they had so many drafts they went through, and then they couldn't revise them. And then while they were shooting it, they started to run out of money. So things that literally were set up to pay off did not, or didn't pay off the way they originally anticipated. Like just really quick, one tangent, Rick's death scene. Yeah. He was originally, I haven't seen even the entire sequence, but I remember seeing storyboards where he's inside that elevator that was morphed from the stall that he was sitting in with all the cheerleaders and his sister.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the elevator starts to, the walls just kind of peel away, and all of a sudden he's like floating in space, then falling in space, and I don't know where he falls to. And they couldn't afford that, so they just set up basically this little tableau of platforms and flowing curtains, and thought, well, we established him as a martial arts expert, let's have Freddy kill him with martial arts. And I don't think Robert Englund on this particular day of shooting was available. He was shooting something else, I think, for this movie. Yeah. So so they just made him invisible, and it's probably one of the weakest kills. Not unmemorable, but one of the weakest kills, I'd say, in the entire franchise.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because it's not scary, it's not really inventive, it's just kind of happening.
Yeah,
but
that's not to say that there isn't inventiveness here, like the bug.
No, not at all.
Kill for sure, and like some of the art direction in this is quite astounding as well.
I agree.
So this movie's not. That's why this is still probably, in the grand scheme of, I mean, I'm spoiling my ranking a little bit here, but I mean, after the Nancy trilogy, as it were, I'd say that this is probably the next one, because I think that it hits all the right notes of like what the franchise is, like just like at its most basic level. Like this has always kind of been the MTV era, or the MTV inspired Nightmare on Elm Street, or even the MTV inspired horror movie of any horror movies, because it's really got that kind of flavor to it. And I believe there is like an MTV promo when Joey's at home in bed. So that was definitely an influence on it, and you can feel it, because there's sort of like, it seems like starting here, because this is sort of like, very much like the Halloween franchise of just like 4 or 5, like just a new trilogy, because I guess you could sort of look at this and the next 2 movies as a trilogy in a way, that it's it's like the B tier trilogy, in that sense.
I usually connect 3, 4, and 5 actually more so.
Yeah.
I feel like 6 is probably the most incongruous
that's
chapter when you go through the franchise. Like it's 2 for a while, and then you get to 6, and you're just kind of like, okay, these are the ones that don't seem to like check in with everything that was set up so much in the last one. They seem to really be doing kind of their own thing.
Well, this does carry over from 3 quite well. I mean, for the most part. Well, let's talk about Kristen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about her.
Oh boy.
This is like no knock against Tuesday Night. I don't know anything else that she's done, but the way that the characterization from Dream Warriors to Dream Master is night and day. It's Tuesday night and Monday day and Tuesday night. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Because like, why am I blanking? Patricia Arquette as Kristen. Like, it's just like she was like this fierce character. She was like, like very strong-willed, very resilient by the end. And this version of Kristen is just like this like whimpering, like almost like she can't.
We were a team.
It's like she. There's certain moments where she can't even. Like there's just like. Yeah. If it wasn't for Rick or Alice or whomever to kind of be there, or Joey and Kincaid, like she has all of her final girl energy is just completely wiped out. If anything, she's kind of like the Cassandra of the I'm thinking Scream 2 of just like she sees everything, she knows what's going on, nobody believes her, and she's just this frightened mess because of it. And the one in particular, the one scene where she manages to knock herself out because she just sort of like pulls herself back from Rick's grasp, throws herself against the wall, and that's enough to like that's enough to like Fern Mayo her to the school nurse.
I'm not Fern. Yeah.
I'm not Kristen. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do have to admit, every time she enters, I can't help, especially because we do open with her song. That is her singing the running from this nightmare. She didn't know that it was going to be the opening title track, but she did record it for the movie. Thought it might be in the background of a scene or over the end credits or something like that. And I think it's a great opener, even just like the instruments and everything like that. I think her vocal's great. But I see that house, the chalk on the concrete, after that Job quote. But seeing they had a quote from like the Bible about Job, and I didn't write it down. But it was about, there's always like a quote like before one of these movies. It's about like sleep and, dreams and all that stuff like that. It's one of the least memorable ones because I always think about like the Edgar Allan Poe one about like how sleep is those little slices of death. Oh, how I loathe them. That kind of thing. Well, and then like for the 6th one, it was Welcome to Prime Time, bitch.
Well, when I hear Job, I just think of like Will Arnett from Arrested Development. I don't know anything. I've never read the Bible. I don't know what's going on in there.
No, Job was the one who had everything stripped away from him till he had nothing. And and he was told by God, like, you need to like do this, and he kept doing it obediently to the point where I think he was supposed to kill his son. And because it was a test of his devotion to God.
You know what? That sounds like a storyline from Arrested Development as well. So
it is. And then God stops him like when he's like about to like impale his son with a dagger or something, and he's just like, okay, you've proven your devotion to me. And then he just walks back home with his son, who now knows that his father would kill him if God told him to. So anyway,
Daddy,
Exactly. Yeah. But with this, I do, to bring it back to Tuesday Night of it all, like I know even Ken Sagos or Sagos, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and Rodney Eastman, who play Kincaid and Joey, for the few moments on screen that they have in this movie. Yeah. I think they got Adrian King'd personally a little bit, but
definitely.
because they could have. I mean, they've fought him before. They should be more savvy.
That's the thing. Like Joey learned nothing from the third movie. I mean, he fell for the
women are still his weakness.
For the same trick. And they were also like, you know, like, he's dead. He's like, it's fine. You know, like, you think that they would be a little bit more.
The boiler is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. The pipes are cold. Freddy's gone. And just kind of like,
but even
really be? What?
But even Adrian King in Friday 2, I feel that she was still, you know, she was. I don't know why she had to. That was never explained. Why she had to, you know, move back there. This is just something I need to do.
It's the only way I know how.
Yeah, but she was still like on edge. You know, she sensed danger. I don't think that it was more so like her own dreams catching up with her. But yeah, these two were just completely
Kristen's on
unprepared.
edge for sure. Yeah, Kristen's on edge for everybody.
And then, well, that's the thing. It's just like the hysterical woman, you know, like the guys are just like, you know, whatever, it's fine.
Well, because I think they've both gone on record in the Never Sleep Again Legacy documentary, talking about how they were both hoping Patricia Arquette would come back, and she was willing to come back, but they wouldn't offer her what she was asking, which was not that much, but it was like, you know, she was pulling, we're alluding to like so many other franchises, she was pulling a Neve Campbell saying, pay me what I'm worth. I'm not asking for the moon, but pay me what I'm worth. They wouldn't want to do that.
What was she doing around that? When was True Romance? I feel like that was kind of like a breakthrough role for her, maybe.
I don't know the timeline, but I mean, she obviously moved on to bigger and better things. But well, and certainly bigger.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she got JC brandied, we'll say.
Yeah.
Or you know, again, this came first, so I guess, you know,
I
Danielle
weep for
Harris.
myself.
Danielle Harris got Tuesday nighted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I weep for myself, though, not for Patricia Arquette. And not for Tuesday Night either. I mean, I can kind of accept, like, what I see and everything like that. She's much more of kind of like a placeholder for me anyway. But I do spend a lot of time just kind of wondering, what would it have looked like to see Patricia Arquette, you know, like, pull that cigarette to her lips and just kind of, like, you know, escalate to this point. Like, how would it have manifested with her? I don't feel like she would have been quite so like, oh my god, you guys, what are we gonna do? You
or
know,
just
like,
like
I mean,
in the sand, just like, oh my god, like, you know, I'm sinking. What's happening?
I mean, it's a whole. Oh my god, that's a whole conversation. But I know that both of the actors who played Kincaid and Joey went on record to say that the chemistry was not as strong with Tuesday Night as it was with Patricia Arquette, and they actually came to dislike her a little bit on set because she seemed to kind of be the diva of the set. And not like she threw her weight around, but she had command, and they were like, you're the newbie. Like, why are you suddenly, like, in charge? And the answer they came up with was, and it's kind of evinced through the evolution of that particular chapter of the documentary, Rennie Harlan had a little bit of, I think, a muse / crush thing going with Tuesday Night. And to the point where she was dating the actor who played Rick, Andres, I forget his last name, Andres Jones. And because of this, like, Andres was not invited to any of the social events while they were doing this or afterwards. He was, shut out of, like, all of these things whenever the party would come together. His invite always kind of got lost in the mail, I guess, as it were.
Wow.
So and he was seeing Tuesday Night, and I think Rennie was just kind of like,
to close the chapter on the Kincaid and Joey of it all.
Yes.
And alluding to another thing that came up in last week's episode, I love how Rick does say, those guys are kind of spooky. Because it made me think of
Sandra.
Sandra in Friday 2. This place is
kind of spooky.
Yeah. Those guys are kind of spooky.
I do also want to say, like, there's I think my favorite, because I do agree with you. You talked about, like, it's not without its inventiveness and its incredible, you know, like, set pieces. And for me, I think the strongest section of this movie. It starts with the movie theater establishing Reefer Madness on the marquee and Lost Burning Youth, and Alice walking in, and we know it's a dream. She doesn't know yet, but she just kind of goes into this movie theater. She sits in the balcony, she's eating popcorn, and all of a sudden the popcorn starts to drift toward the screen, and then she starts to kind of like get sucked midair toward the screen, holding on to the balcony, while everybody else around her sitting solemnly and singularly. No one is together. They're all just kind of placidly just watching. She goes to the screen and looks back and sees herself asleep. Very Alice in Wonderland to me. And also sees that all the people who were sitting there, they weren't in the establishing shot, but they have now kind of in a dream-like way have become all of her friends who have passed away, and they all stand up slowly and begin applauding the screen, applauding her, as suddenly, like, you know, the doors slam and she's in the Craven, has an exchange with her older self, who I think we're all, after seeing Freddy be all nursed out, we're expecting to see Freddy in drag again as her, or as a waitress, and instead it's her older self, saying, "Come on, honey." I got another ADR moment.
Yeah.
Come on, honey.
Oh, is
I
it?
don't wanna
Was that
be
her
here
playing
forever."
herself?
That was her. That was
okay.
old age makeup they put on her. Yeah, and that was a revision. The original one, they made her look too monstrous, apparently. But she, and then in pops Freddy, with his elbow on the counter and just kind of like he's going to share
You
a
come
shake
here
with her or something. Exactly. And then they get a pizza and it's just like, "Oh, Rick, you little meatball." And he eats one of the most disgusting looking meatballs I've ever seen in my life. That's the head of her brother.
It's the whole tableau was very unappetizing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he wants her to bring him another soul, and kind of like, just again, she can't help but think of someone. It's like, we don't make these kinds of illusions often, but it makes me think about Dan Aykroyd in Ghostbusters when he has to think about his Destructor, and he thinks about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He tried to think of something innocent and sweet, something that wouldn't hurt anybody, and he thought of an evil Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that's giant. And so she thinks of Debbie, and then we get that kill, which I love. And then we also get that straddling the loop that she's caught in with Dan.
Yeah.
And all of that, everything that I've just mentioned in terms of that sequence, I think is the strongest cinematic point for me. Like, it's just, I feel that it's beyond story, it's just action propelling forward. And that's what I think is handled the best.
Because we've kind of talked about this before. Because in the original, the whole way that Nancy defeats Freddy is because she's just like, "You're nothing, you're shit," and she turns her back on him, and even though she kind of flinches, like, it's just like, I think that you're still a little afraid of him, but it causes him to disappear, and obviously it didn't work, because then there was, he came back at the end, and then there's the sequel and the sequel and the sequel, but in that particular scene with Debbie, she says, like, what does she say? She's like, "I don't believe in you," or something to that effect.
"Oh, but I believe in you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, why didn't that work? Or was there, like, it's...
I think he was too strong. It was the same I mean, it's, again, after he acquires so many souls, he starts to build up his strength again. Like, that's something that happened in the last movie, where they're trying to hurt Freddy. The few not few. There were still quite a few of them who were alive, but they were all trying to hurt him. And Nancy's looking at him, going like, "I don't understand. He's never been this strong before." And he said, "The souls of the children."
Yeah. Well,
And he pulls his shirt open.
Yeah. He's like Predator. Like, he's just kind of, learns a little and then comes back and has a new strategy, and that's something I will give this franchise, is that he doesn't fall for the same shit every time. Like, I feel like with Michael and Jason, like, it's even Chucky to a certain extent, it's just like, it's always, he's taken out the same way. With whatever the weakness is, and like here, it's like there's a new spin on it. Like, you have to figure it out. But yeah.
No, like with the dog, like I said, with like introducing him with the dog pissing on him and everything like that. It's like, well, we just want Freddy back in the movie, and we got a really great practical effect that brings him back, where you get to see him reverse melt, like anti-melt, like actually form and everything. Same thing with like the way he's defeated in this. It looks really, really cool. I love particularly like the soul, quote unquote, soul arms jutting out of his head and body. And as she
really
shows him the
here.
reflection of himself and everything. Sorry, I know I'm trying to not burp. I'm trying to swallow a burp. But
I don't know if those are contagious.
But we're exhausted, folks. It's been a very, very
crazy
very
long
time for
day,
us.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, I'm gonna finish this thought. So but she shows him the reflection. She all of a sudden has like that Dream Master poem, like, you know, in her head that she recited when she was out in front of her house in her introduction scene. And I don't even remember what that was, but I remember just like evil shall look upon itself and it shall die, or whatever. So she shows him his reflection, and again, it's just kind of like, yeah, clutch whatever you need, just to like, we need to kill him, so just show him his reflection and he'll go away. And you know what, it really makes me want to go back in the franchise and go like, was he ever in a mirror? Was there ever a reflection? I mean, he was inside of a mirror when Kristen was having but I mean, even in Kristen in Dream Warriors, when she was in the restroom,
right.
And she reached for the faucet, and the faucet grabbed back, and he was on the other side of the mirror.
Wasn't there the thing? But what was the thing
but...
in Dream Master where Joey had to like scream? It was the first time he, you know, emitted a sound.
Warriors.
Yeah,
Warriors.
but and they all came out of the
they
mirror.
Go, no! Oh yeah, he was in
Freddy
mirrors at the end, in the climax there too, and then all the mirrors shattered, and he was gone. Mm-hmm. So I guess he can't. But he was reaching out.
And but also in the
in
original one, didn't he like jump out of a mirror at Nancy?
I don't recall.
I seem to recall there was like a thing, like he jumped out of a mirror. She was like looking in the mirror, and maybe she was just like, you know, I'm not crazy or whatever.
It's just a dream. He isn't real. He jumps out of a door.
Oh.
Is it a mirror?
Was there a mirror?
Is there a mirror on the other side of the door? I just remember security. Or her mother like bursting through that door with her robe kind of disheveled, just kind of like, I heard you screaming. But I don't know.
Kristen's mom is back.
Yes, Brooke Bundy. I adore her. And okay, first time I saw that, I hoped that her entry line, when they're all standing in front of like the 1428, sorry.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, Kristen, get the hell away from there! Andale! 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 Just to let you know, remember that actress from the last movie? It was Andale. Remember that actress? She's back, and she still says Andale. It was the perfect line to remind us who she was, because her hair was different. She did look a little different. She was, it wasn't a close-up.
Yeah.
But then she just drives away. Like I'm saying, like some of these moments in this script are crazy.
Yeah.
And I said out loud to my sister, I hope that's all she does in this movie. And then unfortunately, but I thought she did the scene really well. She came back in the very next scene. She's sitting there. She drugs her daughter. Her daughter goes, dream someplace fun. Dream someplace fun.
You
and
just
she ends up on a
murdered
beach.
me, mother.
Take that to your fucking therapy. But
what is with their house too? Like it's just like, it's not the same house as the last movie, is it?
It does not look like it at all.
But
no,
inside it, like it looks like it's just like it's kind of unkempt. Maybe that was just like the one. Yeah, it just felt like it kind of.
Was it?
I don't know. Like they were kind of like there. It looked like there was like just almost like haunted in a little bit, and then. Maybe I'm just misremembering, but I did, because I remember when I did watch it 2 months ago, the exterior shot, because I like had to take a screenshot and then send it to you. I'm like, is this the house in Jawbreaker? Is this Liz Purr's house?
Right.
Because it it had like a very like a similar kind of like facade out front. It's not the same house, but I got real excited because I'm just like, oh my god, it's Liz Purr's house.
Just drive over to Liz Purr's house and jump out of my car and scream, Andale! But, and Liz, we're home! and then you got 2 movies down. But but you can't because it's not the same. But I do have to say, like, everything that carried over from Brooke Bundy's character, I feel like it wasn't in that first scene that made me laugh my ass off and still makes me laugh, but in the second one, I felt like it was still there. She still had this incredibly, like, tight cord, you know, of tension, like, going on within her. Like, she was still guilt-ridden, but didn't want to look at it, so you just had to live, you know, your life as this unforgiving, uncompromising, unapologetic bitch. And I like that. I like that all of her arguments seem to come from a very human place. But I mean, again, we're talking about maybe 45 seconds worth of screen time, maybe less than 2 minutes, I think. And she still just brought it. It makes me so happy. But I mean, okay. There's also things throughout this movie that feel like wonderful artistic flourishes, but if you try to, like, apply logic to them, they aren't going to make any sense, because it's like, oh wait, everybody's awake right now. Wait, is this a dream? And I think the first one that happens for me in this movie is when it's after your favorite moment where Rick calls Kincaid and Joey a little spooky, and he walks away with his arm over Kristen, and as they walk out of the shot, there are those row of lockers with, like, claw marks that have scraped across them and have broken the metal of the lockers, so there are streams of red light shining through. Why? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it didn't make sense. Like, it's just like, is he alive? I guess he's just sort of like, are the realities blending together at that point? Like, it's... Yeah.
Is it all again... I mean, like, I remember Robert Englund's argument for the first movie was that the whole movie is a dream. So I'm wondering, is that what we're trying to do again with 4? Is the whole movie a dream? And that's why Alice can wake up after... I can't remember which death it was. But Alice... Yeah, it was after Rick's kill. After his ding, 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 ding... ding, 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 kill, where they took that theme and made it all bing bong, horrible,
like Spawn music, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. But Rick gets killed by the glove just kind of jutting into his torso.
And it looked weird because it was like he was clocking it, like he was looking at it, but the way that it,
but it's a dream.
The way the whole thing was framed was just like he hadn't seen it at all and just came like
right. But so that happens, and then that's the death where when Alice wakes up, she feels the soul like go into her, or the power go into her, and she screams no, and the glass just blasts into the classroom, never explained, never addressed. Like, and so I'm like, wait, she just woke up. So did that happen in, like, is she still, like, in between sleep and awake, and that's a dream, or was that supposed to really happen?
Okay, well, let's
like
just look at things logistically here, because, like, not even the other students, but just, like, the grown-ups here are really, like, which is why, like, I look at, like, Kristen's mom and Alice and Rick's dad, and just, like, wake the fuck up. Even, like, their teacher, Mr. Rob Shea.
Bob Shea,
yeah. It's like, okay, how many students have died so far at this point? Because it's like, you got Kincaid, Joey, Kristen, who was next? Was it Sheila?
Yeah.
And then at that point, I guess it's 4, and now you've got Rick. And it's like, clearly something is happening here.
Yeah.
And there's supernatural occurrences going on in the school. Why are people not reacting in a way that's sort of like even affecting the characters, like as they go on? Like, remember that one episode of Buffy where I think it was season 2, it was like really early, where there was like a ghost haunting the school. Or 2 ghosts, because they kept like replaying the thing where like the student shot the teacher, but then it like the spirits started manifesting themselves in like all sorts of things, like snakes came in, whatever, and then they're just like, okay, we're shutting the school down. The school is shut down now. Like, there's nothing like that happens in what is it, Springwood? Is that the name of the town? Yeah.
Springwood Slasher. That was what it was called. Yeah.
The Springwood Slasher. It's just like, nope, school is normal. Like, I feel like that's the, the way that Jamie Lee Curtis describes Laurie Strode in 2018, where just like, no, after the trauma of that night, she just went back to school as normal. No therapy, no nothing. It's like, like, that is like the most base level of like horror movie where you just assume like the adults do nothing. They don't care. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, we've seen that a lot. Like, she's young enough, she'll get over it. But like,
of course, yeah,
shit is happening. Windows are fucking breaking. Like, people got injured from that glass. Like, there was like a lineup outside of the infirmary. That nurse was busy.
I agree. I mean, but then, in terms of that, like, I feel like there's just like a greater thematic discussion to be had about like what it is to be in Springwood or to live on an Elm Street and to be an adult with a teenage child. And if they start coming to you with their problems, telling you that they're going through something, are you going to listen? And the answer in these movies most of the times from the adults is no. The adults who help are always the outliers. They're the ones who have to fight and who risk sounding as crazy as the kids are, if the adults are present at all. So I think there's something to the fact you brought up Bob Shea, and I'm glad you did, because the first thing he does as that teacher is yawn. Like, he himself can't even be bothered to pay attention to what's going on. He's not even afraid enough to like, you don't get the impression that he's yawning because like, oh, he's on no-dose and he's downing the caffeine because he's afraid of Freddy. He's just doesn't give a shit. He's just bored out of his mind, hoping that like, he the grave is coming soon, by whatever means necessary. Until then, he's got to make his pension.
I wonder if he is the same character that we see in Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh, in Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh, is he in 2 as well?
He's in 2. He's the bartender that when Jesse goes into that leather bar, he's the one
he's
in
got
the
He's
vest.
got a side hustle. But like this teacher, because like he's the principal in Freddy vs. Jason. So I'm just like, headcanon that...
Headcanon.
Well, I don't know. Like there's so like, because 6 like derails a lot. Anyway.
And I think he's the nightmare character in 6. I think he's the one who.
Oh, he's the ticket.
Sells,
the ticket.
Yeah. He sells the ticket to that kid. Yeah.
Where was Lynn? She's just in the first one, right?
And she's in New Nightmare. She's a nurse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, New Nightmare exists because like Bob Shea's in New Nightmare as well, like playing himself.
Yeah.
So I always see like New Nightmare kind of. That's where like blending of like the reality and the film world and the dream world like is done really successfully. But I mean, here I guess like you can't really question the logic because you know that they just did not give a shit when everyone. Well, no, you're in the cemetery and literally all of these people are buried next to each other.
Yeah, right. Found out that Kincaid's. I never noticed this before. Kincaid's first name is Roland. It was on his tombstone. I was like, Roland Kincaid. Never struck me. No wonder.
Heard that.
No wonder he's always gone by Kincaid, though, because I wouldn't want to go by Roland either if I were him. But
I like
the
name. I like the name Roland.
Not for Kincaid. He's not a Roland.
I don't know. I think it's a classy name, Roland.
Yeah, but I don't think Kincaid is like a classy guy.
Well, Kincaid is
I like Kincaid.
Name.
Yeah.
Kincaid.
I know. Yeah,
it's the name of your favorite Scream 3 character.
But he because that was another thing that was like even in the dreams, like I feel like sometimes it wasn't even the script that felt incongruous. It was just like the editing. Because speaking of Kincaid, that moment where, again, like a character who should know better, he he lands somewhere, says a line that feels like it was not written, where he just goes, "This ain't my dreamland," and then he pushes, I guess, a car onto Freddy and lands on it himself and goes, "Yeah!" because he's defeated Freddy. Everything's going to be okay now. And I'm like, you have been through too much to think that it's over. Yeah. Like, you've been in the room with Nancy Thompson when she said, "That's it. it's over. And then you watched her get stabbed and then stab Freddy herself.
They didn't
like, come
learn.
on.
Yeah.
No, he learned nothing. So,
Yeah.
but then like he does have a moment where he's like, Freddy's back, and we get that pull back to like the planet of cars, which I thought was incredible.
Oh, I like
But then
that.
immediately it jump cuts to all of a sudden Freddy's like right there, clutching Kincaid's throat basically, or his face, and then he just kind of stabs him in the gut and then kills him.
It worked for me.
It just, there was no rhyme or reason to it. It was just kind of like, it felt like the abridged version of the kill scene. I felt like something needed to be built.
I mean, it's jarring, but I just sort of like, yeah, whatever. You know, like the movie's got a movie.
You didn't care.
They gotta. There's, you know, he's got 2 more to get to in that night. I just think that you have an issue with like anything that takes place in like a junkyard of cars, because I know you didn't like the 13 Ghosts set piece either.
I mean, I had my notes for it, but I mean, I like the setting. I think it's because my favorite sequence in there is a speech from a movie that's not horror called Eddie and the Cruisers, where it's like literally a palace of garbage. Scary. Nothing scarier, but also kind of like that. Oh my God. If somebody, now I'm just thinking, because, you know, I'm getting ready for like Halloween Horror Nights and Not Scary Farm and everything like that. Like passes are available, and I'm saving up and making plans, but you just made me think like, what would make me happier than like visiting at night a palace of garbage? I want that more than a haunted house.
The smell.
Yeah, it'd be terrible. I want to go. But anyway,
well, I was gonna say the only other note I have.
Okay.
Because at a certain point I just stopped taking notes, but it was just that Rick, when he's like, I guess training her how to kick or stand up for herself, and he calls her Alison.
Alison, that was cute. Yeah, I love that.
Because it just, again, it made me think of Melrose Place. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
But, okay, so what I'll say is, I think, I'm glad you brought up that particular instance, because right before he teaches her that's another exchange that feels like so unscripted. Like the lines are just all over the place. Like even his entrance, she's sitting there in front of the mirror. She takes down one photo, and he kind of creeps in and sits on her bed and starts the scene. But he says, kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? And she goes, what? And he says, the mirror. You can't see yourself in it. And I love, again, the bond between this brother and sister.
Are they
like
twins?
He cares about her in one certain... No. But
they're like in the same grade.
Yeah. Well, maybe his dad and mom got busy, like 9 months after she, got pregnant with the brother. She got pregnant with Alice. And
I guess. I don't know.
there are people who are pretty close in age. Like,
But in the same grade?
I mean, they're never in a class together, so maybe they're just in high school.
These guys were.
Wait, Rick and
Alice
were? What class were they in together?
It was when they walked into with Kristen and she saw the 2 empty chairs, and she immediately was like, "Oh my God, they're dead!" And then she.
Oh, but they just walked in. I thought that they were just like walking each other to class. Also,
No,
I don't know, maybe
right
it's
into
home.
the class.
Maybe it's homeroom. I don't know.
But
Also,
still,
maybe
homeroom
Alice
was
is
like this your same year,
Well, maybe Alice is really smart, and maybe she skipped a grade. I don't know.
Or Rick is really dumb.
Headcanon.
He got held back.
No, Rick's not dumb. But no. What was I going to say? That it brings up the motif of the mirror, and that was another thing that I thought worked really well. There are a lot of things that overall, like, I appreciate thematically, and the mirror and the ability to see herself as she just kind of like chips away, like addressing the loss of her friends and family as she's just kind of like taking the pictures down, and even like they allude to her mother. It doesn't play a huge part, but she. Like, because the line after he addresses the mirror thing, that's one of the script parts where he says, like, the mirror, you can't see yourself. And she just sits next to him and says, if Mom was still around, Dad wouldn't treat us this way. He's like, you need to learn to take care of yourself. And I'm like, okay, we just need, like, maybe a little bit more dialogue peppered in. But the theme of the mirror, I love the theme of, like, her acquiring the strengths of the dead. I love the fact that even before that, because she makes it work for her, or it's made to work for her, but really it's there initially because she needs to be able to bring people to Freddy once he's done with Kristen. He wants to start on a whole new, is cavalcade the appropriate word, or a whole new community of teens. And I like the guilt that Alice has to carry, even though it's not her fault. I like the guilt that it carries because of the loss of like all of her friends, because she does take it on. All of that stuff makes it really, really work. And at the end of the day, it just sets me up to really want to see 5 too, because I love that the last exchange they have, she says with okay, wait, 2 exchanges, because the last exchange with Freddy, I forgot that she says this line to him, "Rest in hell," and I just got recall of the 2009 Friday the 13th remake, which is just like, "Jason, say hi to mommy in hell." It's so bad.
What about
and I'm just
Robert Englund has his own rap in the...
Oh God! Over the end credits too. Like again, okay. We didn't even really address like much Robert Englund here, but I will just say like I love everything he did. Like he knew you mentioned MTV. He knew this was the MTV chapter, and so he acted accordingly. And then we see him in broad daylight on the beach wearing sunglasses, and the quips are nonstop. And I don't. It's lacking a darkness, but that's, I think, a criticism of the movie more than of him. Mm-hmm. But I do. I know Wes Craven said that this for him was kind of like the beginning of the end of like the thing that the child killer / molester that he originally envisioned for his first movie. That's no longer at play here, because people are going, "Hey, Freddy! Yay!" Yeah. This is the start, really, of all that, of the and of the movies embracing that and using it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I do, like I said, I do appreciate the last exchange between Alice and Dan, where she makes the wish. She sees that Freddy's still kind of there, and I'm like, okay, because you never really outrun the evil. But he asks her, "What did you wish for?" She says, "If I tell you, it won't come true." And then they go off to that song that Debbie was working out to. And I'm like, ooh. And you're like, ooh, they're going fuck. Yeah. And where do we find them at the top of the next movie? They're fucking. So I like it.
Yeah. And if this was Scary Movie, that would be Cindy throwing the coin into the fountain. Then Brenda would come and she'd be like, "Are they getting rich?" Anyway, we're running out of time here, so let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people. On purpose.
We need a cherry on top.
You had an idea, so go.
Well, I couldn't, let's just put it this way. If there was a Nightmare on Elm Street game, like the way that there was a Friday the 13th game, like I just try to think like, who would the characters be that are like assembled of this like motley crew of just like playable whomever, whether you play to survive or Freddy Krueger has to like kill them. And it's Debbie. She's so iconic. I know you hate that word. In just everything that we talked about, the sass, the Linda Hamilton hair, the strength, like she like I wanted more, and actually like her and Sheila were my favorite parts. Just like that, those like as side characters, they were the ones that I was just like, I want more of them. So that's who I'm going with. If not, then I guess probably Robert Englund.
Okay. Have we already had Robert Englund?
Well, Freddy Krueger, I should say, but
or Freddy Krueger, rather.
I'm sure we have, but I mean, we can give multiple.
There are better movies for him though. Like, let's if we haven't, let's save it. And if we have, good. I'm cool with that. Okay, Debbie. I mean, I do like her, and also, I mean. Oh, I always feel for her when she's just like watching. She's just like, what 16-year-old girl has, fatal asthma? She was going to be a doctor. And, I'm just like, oh, she's one of many gears that works in the
That's the girl you would have wanted taken home to mom. If you had a mom.
Fuck you. But,
she's going to be a doctor.
But she, okay, yeah, I like that, and also, the term I think applies. Iconic death. People can go years and years without seeing this movie and still remember
Yeah.
that roach death. It's great. It's and Screaming Mad George, shout out to him for designing the whole damn thing, because it's in and of itself, like it deserves a pedestal and for a place for us to come and behold.
All right, so last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Yeah.
Jason was with us, so we had 3 options. So it was Axel versus, which was my pick, Tina, which was your pick, versus Ted, which was Jason's pick. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final vote was 358 for Axel, 61 for Tina, and 170 for Ted.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what the fine folks have to say.
Yeah.
Mondo Trash CA. This was a tough choice because I really didn't care who got offed out of these 3. Ted was cute in a dumbass kind of way, so I guess he's safe. Axel, well, at least he still found time to aerobics at work, so I guess that's a redeeming quality in a way. So my choice goes to Tina. Now, honestly, I don't know which twin is which twin off the top of my head, but if she's the one trying to cock block her sister and going home without her and being rude, then she deserves to go bye-bye. But if Tina was the one who got a little something-something from Crispin, then she deserves the chop for being lucky, because at the time, Crispin was a cutie. But also, she was very selfish and didn't think of her sister and left her high and dry for a guy who would end up getting banned off David Letterman. Oh my god, that's something I need to look into.
Oh yeah, no, he went wild. All right. The footage exists.
I'll look for it. Event Tide Black Fox Teddy. I don't like his vibes. Sean Prinsick. Axel is an obnoxious creep, and I couldn't wait to see him get the axe. Although I don't care for how Tina abandoned her sister for Crispin Glover. Terry deserved better than the crappy sister she got. On the plus side, this is my second favorite behind part 2. In a lot of ways, I kind of wish this franchise stopped with this one. It's mostly downhill from here. At least the later films would give us Kane Hodder as Jason. Chase the base. I'm voting for Axel because he's my favorite death in the entire franchise. And he's a mega weirdo. Vicky screams. I'm voting Axel because he's a creepy pervert. Fred Hodder. Gonna go with Ted. The computer bit was funny once, then got old fast, then milk in a hot car. Plus, he was creepy with the one double mint twin. Want to give teddy bear a kiss. Barf emoji. Thomas Baker, Ted Cooper for sure, but Axel is such a creepy, horny guy who shouldn't be working in a morgue with dead bodies. Nicholas Wetzel. Although the slow-mo shot of Tina flying out the window is one of my favorite deaths in the series, I think I've got to go with Ted. He was a bad friend who kept repeating the same insult joke and pickup line when he really didn't have any success to back himself up. Also, the fact that the last thing he ever saw while alive was 70-something-year-old stag films was an interesting choice. Same with Axel's aerobicizing tape. Blue Box, Axel, have some respect for the dead man. Also, ew. Elliot from Orlando. Okay, I'm in the minority here, but I say Tina. Homegirl knew Paul was with Sam, and still did everything she could to come between them. Then she has pity sex with Crispin Glover, where she sends her sister off in a rainstorm to die after she was basically mauled by Ted. If Tina hadn't been there, Sam wouldn't have swum out to the dignity to the dinghy to die, and Paul would have followed behind her to his own doom. Nate Pollock. I understand why people are voting for Axel, but he died less than 10 minutes after he began annoying us. Ted's douchebag shtick just keeps going and going. Teddy's death is the first time I legit cheered for Jason killing someone. Dale the Dawn voting Axel because he's a dead fuck. Welshman, I don't particularly care for the Friday movies unless it's Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, or the reboot. But the Paramount ones are the best. So I'm not sure who these characters are exactly. But the Axel guy seems like the over-the-top funny guy, and they always need to go. Silent Saturn, voting for Ted. The erotic film really wasn't that funny. It felt like he was laughing at it for hours only because boobies. He can go.
And he was
James
stoned.
Morantz. Axel, definitely. He was such a douchebag. The Tar Man, Ted, bad friend who gives bad advice, then gets jealous with his Riz. Forgive the zoomerism isn't enough to endear him to a girl. R.I.P. Jimmy. Amethyst Frost. As always, I vote for the guest choice to cause mischief and make things harder for me to spreadsheet. Amethyst Frost, by the way, if you're going over to our YouTube page, just look at the links. He's got a whole spreadsheet of all of the data from the past Cherry Picker episodes, if you're interested. Baby Ghoul, who made up the 9% of people who voted for Tina. Yes, she tried to move in on a guy who was spoken for, but that's not nearly as bad as Ted and Axel being total creepers. Axel gets the axe. Grant Dempsey, who's the dead fuck now, Ted, is what I wish I could say, but it looks like he ain't gonna win this. Wish I could vote for Rob, though. He comes in knowing about Jason, hunting Jason only to get himself killed without accomplishing a damn thing. And my chunky Geordie, Tina, she's a biatch for what she did to both her sister and the poor lass who got it in the inflatable boat. My brother never, ever left me alone at parties. All right. Got to make this quick. I'm voting for... So I got first dibs. So I'm voting for... Or nominating, rather. Kristen's mother. I don't care if she's endearing with her on delay. That bitch drugged her daughter. She and not just like a little bit of like sleeping pill. She used like half a bottle. I don't know how Kristen knew to like look in the purse and figured it out intuitively
She knows her mom.
that way. Yeah, she knows her. Her mom's a yeah. And like I was saying before, it's like these adults, like two of her friends died mysteriously on the same night. Like whether or not they went to therapy, even if the mother takes the therapy seriously, even if she doesn't believe Kristen, there's like to have that kind of progress, you need to hear your daughter, you need to listen to her. So for the fact that she drugged her and is essentially the catalyst for her death, or allowing Freddy to kill her, and just like driving up on the street like out of nowhere like a ninja and then screaming at her and then driving off without even like letting her get in the car and take her home, like what was she supposed to do? So, and I still have residual hang-ups about her from the third movie too. She's been a pain in the ass for a while. So yeah, I'm going with that bitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like the obvious decision is to choose Alice and Rick's dad, but I don't want to do that because I even noticed like in this one, like it's not a redemption, but the fact that like in his drunken stupor, like at the end when she tries to go off and like handle everything, he tries to stop her because he doesn't want to lose her the way he just lost his son and everything like
which
that.
Can't be said for Kristen's mom. Sorry,
it's true.
Gotta campaign a little bit more there.
And Johnson, that's their last name, is Johnson. So Mr. Johnson, I can't really nominate him in good faith. The only other person who I can think of who I feel deserves it because of like kind of like equally like disgusting behavior, and if I saw it in school I would have been like, what the fuck, is he's credited as Buddy in Locker Room. I already alluded to when Rick comes up and he's yawning, he's just kind of like, well, you gotta feel for a guy whose girlfriend is dead and whose sister is in the nut house or whatever, and just kind of like, fuck you, that's no way to talk about people when they're going through shit. And I mean, still very much steeped in it, like, you're a piece of shit. I wish Freddy would have like carved you and taught you a lesson that you don't talk about people like that. I wish Freddy would have talked some shit about you and your family and your girlfriend that you don't have, asshole. So him.
I guess the moral of the story is like, be an asshole in high school, you'll live longer, depending on which franchise you're in.
And that's why he deserves to die, because there were non-assholes, very decent people who I like in this movie who died, and it's like, that fucker walked away. Fuck him.
Well, he has no soul, so Freddy has has no use for.
Well, then just get him for the glee of the kill. Just the joy.
The glee.
sheer...
The glee of it all. All right. If you want to vote, you can head over to Patreon. Regardless of whether you are supporting there or not, there's an extra vote there. But please support us. Give a little back to the podcast. It helps us out. You can also go to Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, and you'll find the poll up there every week. So follow us there, and YouTube as well. Subscribe to us, and you'll find the poll there every week as well. If you're new to the Cherry Picker and this is your first time, you can also listen to us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Edward, where can they find you on socials?
You can find me, my content on YouTube, on TikTok, and my movie reviews on Letterboxd, but mostly I live in Instagram. So what about you?
Yeah, and then you can find me on my main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. Twitter, Zach Cherry 8. Letterboxd, also Zach Cherry. No 8 on that. Instagram is at retro bitch face, all one word. I think that's the usuals. So yeah, the least impassioned call to action on social media announcement ever. But I'm trying to remember everything because I'm speeding because I got to be somewhere in 6 minutes. But yeah. Next week is the Cherry Picker After Dark. So as we already mentioned, it's the part 2 of the James Bond rankings. But then we will be back in October for a whole lineup of new things. We're keeping it secret until then.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right back.